are running.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Jones Board of Education, date is November 10th, 2021. The time is 6:15 p.m. Would you please rise for the pledge of allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anybody who would like to speak, their card will be filled out with Mrs. Brennan. Okay, our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the regular meeting from October 28th, 2021. I so move the resolution.
Second.
Favor by Mr. Malachi. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Mr. Blake, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
There are, I have on edits under people operations on page 8, number 3, Dr. Thomas Waldron. Salary should read $43,967 prorated. Sorry, 43,967.
Okay.
On page 10, item 9, you see the mentors. It's Glenn Kuhn and Talia Stavage. They are co-mentors, so they'll be splitting the $1,500. Not each. And then there is one additional business item from People Operations Committee last night for the creation of a English new language teacher and an administrative, an interim principal for early childhood program. Those items are in front of you, an additional sheet that would require unanimous vote to add to the agenda. They were both discussed last night at People Operations and asked to move forward.
Do that up in People Operations portion, Mr. Malachi? Okay with you?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blake.
Want to make a resolution or 13? The people operations.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 12 right now.
Okay, report of superintendent.
Well, good evening, everybody. Got quite a few things to talk about this evening. First of all, thank you for allowing me to attend a couple of national conferences the other week. Got to spend several days working with superintendents, literally from, I think, almost all 50 states, although I don't think I met anybody from Alaska or Hawaii. But for the first time, one of the conferences, I got to do a lot of work with folks from the Midwest, the Dakotas, Montana, Idaho. Very different way of schooling out there. Was interested to learn that some districts still have one-room schoolhouses and with one student in registration, which is very interesting, but different way. But I did learn quite a bit. One of the things I spoke with Mr. Nash about was I learned some things that schools are doing in the Midwest related to board relations and district administration relations, and some different things that we're going to try and work on with you all here, just to continue to make sure that we're having good dialogue, a good understanding of the district operations, and try and minimize confusion that can happen through email. So some good topics from there. Also had a great chance to meet and learn quite a bit about attendance, improving attendance, some strategies that districts are using nationwide to improve attendance, some programs they're using to help track attendance a little better than what we use with School Tool here in New York. And there's another program that kind of ties into the evaluation of the goals that we approved the other week that's related to staff retention and staff exiting surveys, kind of keeping a pulse on your staff. So there's some good opportunities out there. Met some great superintendents. Some I already knew, but I had a chance to learn more about what they do. So I look forward to continue to talk about some of those things that we're hoping to bring here to Rome that might not quite be in New York State yet. So thank you all for that opportunity. A couple of things just want to update on. Winter sports are about to undergo. Just so you're aware, the Tri-Valley League athletic directors met today. As I mentioned in the previous board meeting, the number one topic of discussion for them was the limiting of audience members at athletic events for the winter season. Without going into the details, I feel that I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was from the superintendents or from the athletic director. I know I was not consulted prior to the discussion starting. I feel that the restrictions that they were trying to put in place are greater than what we were under last year. So I'm not happy to report that the resolution to limit the audience participation to two spectators per home athlete only did pass the athletic directors council by a vote of six positive, 1 negative, 2 abstentions. Rome was an abstention, and that's because I directed Mr. Stamboli to inform them that whatever they vote on, we're not going to do it. We're going to do what we feel is best for our student athletes in our community. That will probably bring some negative light to us from some other folks Utica way, but just so you're aware, we will continue to work with what we feel is in the best interest of our students and our families, and not kind of, there's nothing that says that there has to be uniformity. We don't have uniformity with our musical performances with all these districts. We haven't done so for fall sports. So just so you have a heads up, I don't know where that's going to go, but Rome is one of 2 districts that abstained, and there's a 3rd district that voted no. I believe that the other district that abstained with us will also be joining in the we're going to do what's best for us, but there might be a little bit of turmoil coming our way related to that.
How many sports playing the TV?
There are 9 schools.
No, Rome sports. How many Rome sports?
We have basketball, girls and boys. We have volleyball girls. We have wrestling. Hockey's kind of its own thing, but they would all fall in that.
So that means whatever Rome decides will apply at home,
At
but if
Rome,
those visiting schools.
Correct. Any school, so basically our families will not be able to attend visiting contests unless it's at one of the other schools, and it's going to kind of do their own thing. So, but we can control our own destiny for that. That's the most negative I have for tonight. Just a couple of quick updates. If you didn't see this week, the Seal of Biliteracy program at RFA was awarded a silver medal. And that's simply for the work they've done for the first couple of years. Essentially what it does is just bring some more prominence to that seal if you are able to get that on your diploma if you're a student. We are, and also we plan on in 2 years being upgraded to a gold eligibility for that. So it simply means that our students are excelling. The process is very lengthy. It's also very challenging for a student. Essentially what it means is the student is graduating from RFA being fluent in 2 languages. And so I've had the privilege of sitting in on the student presentations over the past 2 years, and it's just really fun. I can't understand anything that they're saying in their presentation, but it's just enjoyable to listen to, and it's amazing to see what kids can do really when it's always been true, but it's always fun to see what they can do when they put their minds to it. So thank you to the team of E&L teachers at RFA that kind of kicked that off. Jen DePerno is our director, who's really directly responsible for helping to make sure that they've met all the nice regulations and things with that. So thank you to her. And the director or the teacher that oversees that program, they're all kind of involved, but the teacher that does the most work with that is Nakaya Pomponi. So I thank her for all her work. It's not an easy thing to do to make sure we're meeting all the regs and dotting all the I's and crossing the T's. So thank you to them and congratulations to the students that have done that. On the heels of that, Chris Brewer and his team are working on the civic readiness seal for high school seniors, graduating seniors. Rome is one of about 100 districts in the state that have been awarded the opportunity to pilot this program for this year. So he's meeting with the committee on an ongoing basis, just kind of figuring out how we're going to go about it. There are a lot of variables at play, but we're hoping that come June, we'll be able to graduate some kids with the first ever civic readiness seal on their diploma. So we'll keep you updated as that goes through. Some positive news. You saw in your updates that the 3 through 8 assessment scores were released recently. There is some great progress happening at 3 through 8 in our ELA specifically. Some grade levels had as much as 200% growth from 3 years ago, the last time they really offered the test. So it's good to see students performing. Math is a little bit of a different story, and we think that when you talk, up until now, we've talked about learning loss due to COVID related to the time being out, and it appears that some teachers were already hinting that there was less learning loss in ELA than math. I think these scores kind of show that ELA is maybe even stronger than it was prior to COVID, and math is falling behind a little bit. It's most probably directly related to the independence that students needed during COVID to learn. There was a lot more reading involved during COVID for students to learn things, and math is a skill where you really do need a lot more support, a little bit more practice. And without someone right there with you that you can ask questions to all the time, math is something that can come tougher to people. So work to do with math, but it's positive growth in ELA. And thank you to our teachers in 3-8 level, and we'll K2, because if it weren't for K2, they wouldn't have gotten to the 3-8. So thank you to our staff for what they do.
Just really,
Yeah.
shout out to the juniors that took the ELA 100% passing in that too. Just
Thank
wanna
you.
recognize
If
their
you
work.
didn't see if you didn't see the region scores last year's junior class, or not just the junior class, but any 100% of the RFA students that took the ELA regions passed. So that's always a great thing to see that you 100% success rate. Also positive news for the district, you'll see coming out the next few days, and I think Amanda might talk about this a little bit tonight, but we are participating in a social emotional learning skills inventory study. We are the only district in the country that's doing this. We are one of several. However, due to COVID, the individual conducting the study kind of backed out a little bit, and we expressed some disappointment. We were looking forward to working with our students and our families on getting a little bit more understanding of where they are with social emotional needs and learning. And upon hearing that we were a little bit upset that we couldn't participate, the individual came back and said we would like to conduct the survey still in Rome. This is they don't have any data from the northeast part of the country. Most of their data comes from the southwest. So we're going to get to move forward. This is a great opportunity for us to get some information back on our students K-12. It's going to be a K-12 situation, and our teachers will complete basically a skills inventory on their perceptions of students' social emotional well-being right now. Parents will also have the opportunity to complete a similar survey about their own child's, their impression of their child's social emotional. And we're working with the individuals to see if we can develop a student portion to the self-report. And so we can triangulate from a teacher's perspective, the parent's perspective, and the kid's perspective, and learn more about what can we do to increase our social emotional support. So I didn't mean to steal your thunder if you were planning on talking about it a little bit, but it's one of those things. It's one of those things. When you're the only district in the country having the opportunity, it says that you're doing things that you're outreaching and trying to help that maybe some others haven't looked into. So, and that's directly related to Amanda and Dana Benzo have been our 2 point people working on that project. So thank you to you ladies. And Dana, if you're out there listening. A couple of quick announcements. We are working with Mohawk Valley Health Systems to get some COVID-19 vaccination clinics up and running for ages 5 to 11, really from ages 5 to whoever is not vaccinated if they want. So we're currently just solidifying some dates and times in which they can come out and set up. If you remember last year, we did this a few times with Mohawk Valley Health System for the ages 12 and up. We've had nothing but positive comments from the schools that worked with them and the families and students that went through that. So we do hope to get that up. I think I asked him if he can get a date in next week sometime, simply because if we can get kids going on round 1 sometime next week, it should allow most kids to get vaccinated fully by mid-December, right before the turn of the year. But at the very least, we will have some clinics up and running before the end of November for families ages 5 to 11 that are interested and maybe having trouble finding a clinic somewhere else. Quick reminder, next Tuesday night at Denti is our community conversation related to our diversity, equity, and inclusion work that we're doing here in the district. That's at Denti Elementary. Those start at 6:30. Is that correct?
Right.
Chris, man, 6?
6.
Like 6. All right. I like 6 o'clock. It makes it easier. Everything's 6 o'clock. So next week, Denti, if you're interested in joining us, general conversation about all of our thoughts related to the diversity, equity, and inclusion. On the heels of that, on November 29th at Stroud, from 6 to 8 p.m. Ross Haber and Associates will be doing their first community presentation related to redistricting. And the purpose of that will be to invite the community in to talk about what they would like to see in their schools, how they would like to see some things set up, talk about their concerns, their thoughts, and for Ross and his team to get some feedback, present some ideas. That will be Monday, November 29th at Stroud Middle School,
What time?
6 to 8 p.m.
Will that be available on?
Zoom it?
It will not be Zoom. It will be an in-person only event. It's an interactive event. That's why it's going to require breakout sessions
Okay.
and roundtable conversations. And
So it's any parents.
it's all parents in the district, correct?
Okay.
Yep, it's not school specific. They thought about doing school specific ones, and my recommendation to him was if you do school specific, you run the risk of pitting building against building and
Been there,
having one be
done that.
overheard more than another. So they opted for one big session with breakout groups. So
Can that go out maybe before this, like a couple times on Parent Square?
yeah, it'll be
That's very helpful.
advertised significantly, and they have their own marketing arm that they want to utilize with us as well. Last thing I'm going to mention, the young lady might not even recognize it yet, but or know this yet, but I'd like to let the community know that our own Ilana Akavisi has been nominated for a presidential scholarship award through the federal government. She is one of, I think it is 40 students, 20 female, 20 male, statewide, recommended to the Commissioner of Education to receive the recognition. So congratulations. I don't know if you can hear that or not, so I'm glad to bring it on. Obviously, as you know, Ilana sitting here as a student board member, representative of RFA. So you've done tremendous things, so we're very honored to be able to put forward that recommendation for you. We hope you're selected, but it is something that there's only 40 students statewide that are recommended every year directly to the commissioner's office.
Pretty.
And I believe they select 10. I think. Don't quote me on it. Do some math. But congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
After that nice long-winded, it was a lot tonight.
It was.
So, yeah,
Well, mostly good news.
yeah, it's all good news except for the winter sports thing,
Right,
which
right.
will eventually be good news for us. And, you know, we'll be on the old television. WKTV will call and it'll be good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blake.
You're welcome.
Now it's time for our public comment portion. At this point in the meeting, we are opening up the meeting to public comment. If you wish to speak and have not already done so, please fill out one of these cards. This is an opportunity to speak, to appear before the school board and express your views concerning agenda items and district affairs. We ask that you limit your remarks to 5 minutes. All public speakers are asked to refrain from making personal attacks toward district employees and elected officials. Be advised that your comments do not enjoy the same privilege and immunity as statements made by members of the Rome Board of Education, and that defamatory or obscene statements are prohibited. Please note that unless specifically indicated on the agenda, this time is not a question and answer period. There is no exchange of conversation with the members of the board or executive staff. However, if your comments require a response, every effort will be made to respond to your inquiries within a reasonable time frame. Thank you. So our first speaker is Jerry Ann Scheiderick.
I've never been to a school board meeting before, so you have to tell me what the
Welcome.
etiquette is. Do I stand up here? Do I have to go up there?
Right there is fine.
There's fine.
Whatever you're most comfortable.
Okay. So my name is Jerry Ann Scheiderick. I've been a resident of this school district for 22 years. I have been homeschooling both my kids since 2007. I have been through 7 school administrators for homeschooling. I have graduated my eldest 5.5 years ago. And I just graduated my youngest last month, although without the superintendent's letter this time, which I'm very sad about. I'm here tonight because I would like to throw our support for Mr. and Mrs. Moy and their need to get their IHIP approved for this particular school year. I do believe that what is being asked regarding the AIDS education for homeschoolers is not part of the New York State educational requirements. And I would like the board to please consider their request, as it does affect so many of us here in the district. Although my children are just about finished, there are many that have just begun. And it's something I would like you to please consider.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair. Next is Jennifer Brown.
So hi, I'm Jennifer Brown. I also homeschool, and I'm primarily here in support of the smaller session y'all had just a half hour ago. I homeschool our 8-year-old daughter, and my husband's final words to me were, "Jennifer, don't you dare say anything." So here we go. So sorry. So just so you know where this is all coming from. But anyway, my whole thing is that I've had 0 issues, but also I have an 8-year-old. So I've been homeschooling for what, 3 years? I mean, it's so whatever. Some of these folks are, oh my goodness, veterans of this, decades involved. It's amazing the knowledge sitting behind me, amazing. So I'm definitely the green one. I just have the bigger mouth. Hence my husband's warning. But being that I'm on a 5-minute time limit, I guess my whole point is that I'm not fully comprehending why the law that's written for homeschooling, it's very simple. Here's what you must do. End of story. I don't understand why that isn't just easy to understand for pretty much everybody. If I can understand it, anybody really can. And I'm quite certain that everyone here is following that very well, because we learn from each other. And I'm just one of the steering committee members of the big Leah group here in Rome. And though people don't necessarily come to me to ask their questions, the 2 other steering committee members, oh, wealth of knowledge. So the I's are getting dotted, the T's are getting crossed. I know on this end. So I'm not fully comprehending why it's having to go to the higher levels and the monetary problems of lawyers. That just doesn't make any logical sense to me. So is it a fear? Oh, I'm afraid I'm not getting my job done in government school and I want to keep my job. I would get that. A job's a job, it pays the bills. Or is there someone that we're going to sock it to? I mean, I don't see anybody in Rome being mean to homeschoolers. That's illogical too. That would be babysitting. Who wants to do that? So I guess my whole comment is, I don't understand how it ever got to the level of having lawyers involved with something so simple of, here's the law. This is what needs to be taught. Hey, homeschoolers, are you teaching it? Awesome. Okay, bye. That's my story. Thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer. Michelle Catherwood, is that right?
Catherwood, yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm Michelle Catherwood. I've been homeschooling in the Rome School District for about 10 years. And Rome has been actually a great school district to work with in these 10 years. Rome is one of those school districts that takes the paperwork we send in, reviews it, and sends it back, which is very, to me, means a lot. It's the time we put into doing our paperwork, knowing that it's being reviewed, knowing that what we are, what the regulations we are trying to follow is being acknowledged, it means a lot, and it's very helpful for us. There are some districts out there that I know don't review the paperwork. Families don't even know if the paperwork is even opened. I know ours is, and I appreciate Rome for their diligence in doing their part to follow the regulations. That being said, the last couple of years have been a little bit more stressful for a lot of our homeschool families. Those of us who have been doing it for a while are starting to see questions about our paperwork. Why are we not including things that we've always included and have been doing it for many years? And the main thing I just wanted to share is that Rome has been a very good school district to work with for homeschoolers, and we do appreciate it. And we hope that maybe these bumps we can get through and move forward and have the good relationship we have been having these at least 10 years for me, many more for Jerry Ann and some of our other families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just so you folks know, we are not going to be able to comment on the hearing, so just you're looking for an answer, we can't give you one tonight. Okay, anybody else would like to speak?
I need to fill out a paper. Can I still see?
Sure.
My name is Stephanie
Just,
Schulman.
just go and
Oh, you fill it right now?
after we can
Okay.
talk now and then.
Just your name and that you're from the Rome district.
Okay, my name is Stephanie Schulman. I wasn't prepared to speak. Didn't, think that we're gonna do this tonight, but I feel compelled to speak to just have you guys hear our hearts as one school family. My family moved to Rome in 2017, 2018. We were in the Utica district prior, homeschooled there for a few years. So my kids did go to school and now they're homeschooled. So I have public school, private school, and homeschool all experience now after my daughter is a sophomore in high school. So moving to Rome School District was easy at the beginning. Everything, like she said, our paperwork was always acknowledged. Really good communication with Katrina. Everything was, good. And I'm the kind of person that stresses over every report. I make sure that I go through all my kids' work and like dotting I's, crossing T's. And I know most homeschool parents are the same way. So also our kids love living in Rome, which I didn't think they would. I thought they'd be begging me to move back closer to all their old friends and their roots, but they actually really enjoy the community. My husband's a pastor here. And so we've put roots down in Rome for the last 3 or 4 years, getting to know the community. We actually worked in some of the schools, doing different giveaways and helping out with like This Is Christmas program and all of that. So I'd like to say that our family has definitely has a love for the city of Rome. We also pay a lot of money in our taxes just to live on a little city plot. I think you all know that. So I just want, my heart is that all of us can be together with the board, with you at all times. And when these things happen, that there's just always that, you guys know from most of this community, is that we are always trying to do our best, and that there's usually not an issue on our end, is that we're trying to, we have some malice or some ill intent. We're just trying to give our kids the best education possible and follow the law and the regulation. And that is always our heart with the district. And I just wanted to communicate that, and hopefully that this can get resolved for this family, because they're a sweet family. And I know that they feel the same way.
Thank you. Can you just fill out the card for Mr. Sherman?
Thank you.
Not my anything question.
I didn't fill out a card either, but I will make sure that.
You can fill out the card after you speak, yes.
So I'm a little intimidated. I didn't realize so many homeschoolers would be here. So I have something a little bit different. But one of my first concerns, and this is minor, and it's been fixed before, but I didn't see this meeting pushed out via other avenues besides Facebook. I don't feel Facebook is a really great informational source for all parents. It really limits who gets the information. And I think it's important for parents to know that there's a board meeting happening so they can voice their concerns, especially when the meetings aren't on a regular scheduled day. So this one was a little bit different. So we'd really love to see that information pushed out through Parent Square, email, any way that that can possibly be done to get more parents here. I know it probably makes your job easier when we're not here, but I think
No,
No,
we're
we
glad to
want
have
you
you here.
here.
Yeah, we actually like it.
Are you all gonna stay? Because we like this.
We need to hear from you. So,
So
yes.
the probably a babysitter's at home, so I was a little bit late.
Yes.
Another thing that I had a question on was pop-up vaccinations, which you answered that earlier. Does the school district plan on promoting COVID-19 vaccinations to minors within the school district? Would really love some information sent out to parents on how that is going to be done. I have a kindergartner, so I worry about how he will get that information and if he will get that information. And would really love to see the board or any board member take a proactive stance in fighting back against mandatory vaccines in our younger children. Really feel like it should be a parent choice, and we probably know that's coming down the pipeline in New York State. There are some boards fighting back and writing letters currently, whether that be to administrators up in New York State, wherever that may be, or other associations that you are part of. So I think that would really be a huge step forward between Rome City School District and parents, and coming together to putting our students first. Again, it is a parent choice. If you want to do it, great. If you don't, great, but it should be a parent choice. So thank you.
Can you just go fill out the card for Mrs. Brennan, please?
Did we get a name on it? From her? I don't think she-
Did you-
No, I'm just wondering if she stated it. It doesn't, but that's just an advertisement.
Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna start our regular agenda then. Oh, I'm sorry, Amanda.
I can leave, it's fine.
We have a work study session with, on the counseling update.
In our defense, Amanda, we took notes, all of us, all over the front of our,
It's
and
totally
your,
fine. I
sorry.
thought Peter talked about this, so I thought.
I saved the 3 minutes. And I turned your 3 minutes into 7. It's Colleen Brewer
Can
Jr.
you? You spoke young.
Did you say 30?
Oh, boy.
In Jill's office, and I'll get it out for you to make sure you get it.
I spent her 2 minutes till 7.
All right,
But
Thanks,
you said
Andy.
Brewer, so that's gotta be
I call myself
37.
Brewer.
37.
No, I'm not going that way. I know I'm long-winded. but That's no trouble PowerPoint. So I'm like, okay,
And
so
read
that's
it.
wrong with you.
Read it, PowerPoint.
Yeah, you want me to?
No.
Don't roll your eyes at me.
Roll it in.
If you want to sneak out, I don't blame you.
Fine.
You won't think you're rude if you do want to sneak.
If you want to
Or
leave,
you
it's
should
really
know.
okay. Although I don't mind talking about it. So I don't have enough one pagers for everybody, so I apologize. If you really want one, you can email me and I'll email it to you. I just have the one pager. I just took some notes on here and I'll kind of talk through some of the items, and if there's questions, I'm happy to answer. If I don't have the answer right now, I brought something to write down. I can email you an answer later on, okay? I guess I'll just start at the top and go down. If that's all right. First, I want to thank the board so much for creating more support staff positions for the district. Bringing in new school social workers has really helped to enhance our department, and it's really helping the students. So doing that, however, historically in this district, the school counselors especially at the elementary level, have been doing the job of both a social worker and a school counselor. And that's been a huge burden for this department because they're really trying to do both pieces, and both pieces are too much. So now that we have almost a full, almost all the vacancies filled for school social workers, we really are delving deeply into trying to decipher, okay, what is the school counselor role and should it look like? What should a school social worker role look like? So what we've done is we've had conversations and we've pulled information from the American School Counseling Association, as well as the School Social Worker Association of New York State. And we've looked at what their guidance is. What are they putting out there as an overarching entity for both of those professions, as what their job should look like. And we've been delving deeply into that with both departments and with the administrators. And we've come, and this is gonna be a year-long process, and potentially even longer than that, as we bring people on board and we try to get used to what this is looking like and getting used to personalities and feeling how this is working with each building. It may look a little different, but generally speaking, school counselors live in a tier 1 world for the most part. So if you're looking at a multi-tiered system, tier 1 is a large pyramid. Tier 1 is the bottom, and tier 1 is where all students are receiving the service. So school counselors have an expertise in career development, career awareness, and career choices. That happens for every student. School counselors are pushing into classrooms and teaching social emotional learning, bullying prevention, child safety. That happens for every kid in every classroom. And that's mostly where school counselors do the bulk of their work. That's what the guidance is telling us is where they should be doing the bulk of their work, is direct contact with students, and in a large setting is appropriate for them. School social workers are at the top of the pyramid. They're dealing with the most intense needs that children are experiencing. And so they are doing really spending a lot of time with individual and small groups of students and their families, and delving deeply into what exactly their mental health concerns are or whatever, and then connecting those families and students with resources in the community and pulling all of those pieces together. Then in the middle is where it kind of is blended, and where the two professionals have to come together and they do things together at that tier 2 level. So you're serving All students at tier 1, where the school counselors are, just your most needy, maybe less than 5% of your students at this tier 3. And then tier 2 is about 15-ish% of your students that need more than just the universal, what everyone is getting, but don't quite need this super high intense need. An example of a tier 3 service would be mandated counseling per an IEP. So a student with an identified disability that requires counseling services or psychological services, whatever the label is, that's something that would be tier 3. Tier 1, I talked about, classroom lessons, things like that. So we've been working on that a lot and having that those conversations, and that's been a topic for a lot of the meetings that I've been having with the departments, both the social worker department and the counseling department. The school counseling programs, there's been some updates to the program. All of us have, now that they have a little bit more time on their plate, we're really delving into career awareness at the K-6 level. They really haven't done a whole lot of career awareness activities at that level. Career awareness and career exploration kind of is handled mostly at the secondary level historically in this district. So the department over the summer met and they've adopted some lessons that they're going to be pushing in and delivering toward the end of the year in every single grade level K-6. So all of those students will be getting a career awareness lesson. And these lessons are from another state. Actually, Georgia reached out and I had a conversation with them, and their state education department approved these lessons for the entire state. So they really liked them. They were really rich in diversity, and they touched on a whole bunch of different topics. It was just very interesting, and they wanted to try them out and see how the students here are going to like them. So we're doing that this year. We're exploring a new tool to do career exploration, and we're kind of looking at doing that at the 7th grade level. It's a new tool. The Naviance tool that we are using currently at the high school to apply to colleges has a career component, but it's kind of clunky, and it's not really something students are interested in. It's really not, the front facing is not engaging. And I've been hearing that for a while now. So I found this other option. We've seen some demos, and we're going to take a more deeper look at that for our 7th graders this year. The images that I have on the handout are from our Second Step program. So we've been using Second Step since I came here. It was purchased as a kit. Does anyone not know what Second Step is? I have no clue, right? Probably not really. Yeah, okay. So
Okay.
Dr. Fontana probably knows. She's probably heard that. I should let you do the presentation. So on the Second Step program. Second Step is basically a family of social emotional learning programs. I'm reading notes because one of the counselors delivered this portion to our advisory council, and she takes way better notes than me. And it's a tier 1 universal classroom-based curriculum for teaching social emotional foundational skills for all students. We have this program in our preschool all the way through 8th grade. They have 8th grade lessons available. This year, with the closing of Staley, we had already purchased the license for Staley, and you purchased the license by school. So we slid that up to the middle school. And so the middle school counselors are using this license within the middle school setting as well. So you're seeing the same language, the same concepts going pre-K all the way through 8th grade right now. They have, let's see, the curriculum is aligned with trauma-informed practices, restorative practices, multi-tiered systems, RTI, PBIS. It's got aligned with all the standards that the counseling department, the social worker department do all of their work from, the CASEL standards, all of that. They have pre-recorded webinars where they choose topics include creating a caring culture, trauma-sensitive practices for remote learners. It's really a huge piece of it is growth mindset, building positive relationships and bullying prevention. It's really a holistic approach to building supportive communities for every child through social emotional learning. And they use a variety of different media, activities, interactive components, and it really kind of just engages a lot of the learners at all levels. And if you look at the images, they've really done a nice, like a complete revamping to ensure that there's different cultures and different backgrounds and different ethnicities represented within the tools that they use. So you'll see Pepito, Mateo and his hamster Pepito, and they go on the adventures, and they they're learning through the different media outlets. But these are just some samples. And the nicest thing for I guess ease of use is that they're no longer boxed kits. Everything is digital. So when we were, for example, when we were remote, it was really hard to take a DVD on your laptop. It was really clunky, and it was very hard for the counselors to even project the videos. This is all digital, and it's taken all of that away. So that's been a huge relief for everybody. Much more easy to access the tools in the classrooms. The school counseling department as a whole has really taken on the district's initiative to focus on DEI. I want to thank Ms. Reddick for attending the advisory council meeting last week. We talked a lot about this and what the school counselor role is in relation to some topics under that umbrella. There is the American School Counseling Association does they have a whole series of professional development. They have one right now that's free for school counselors called a DEI specialist. And so I pushed out to the counselors and said, it's free right now. Would anybody be interested in taking the class? And then just coming together, because it's self-paced, and I'm not really good at self-paced. I like to have deadlines and stuff. Otherwise, something else is more important for me. So just really for my own selfish reasons, I said, who else wants to do this? And we can maybe meet bi-weekly and give ourselves deadlines, and then we talk about it. And I've had at least, so far I've had 8 counselors out of the whole department reach out and said they were also interested. So there's a group of us that are going to be doing that. All of the school counselors in each of the buildings come up with a goal that they're going to work toward throughout the year. And the theme this year, and it wasn't something that I directed them to do. They just kind of fell into place. And I think this has to do with conversations they've had with their building administration and the needs that they're seeing throughout the buildings. But all of them are focusing on some kind of umbrella of diversity, equity, inclusion, and really helping students get connected to the building. So Bellamy and Denty are really focusing on increasing staff capacity as it relates to social emotional learning, mindfulness, and having the staff kind of internalize and then utilize some of those skill sets with students. GANS, Ridge, Joy, and RFA, their goals under the umbrella of focusing on students feeling connected and empowered in their schools. CLUF, the preschool program, Stokes and Stroud, they're looking at behavioral growth and looking at students' behaviors and, again, supplementing these skills to improve behaviors. A little bit about the screener. I won't delve too deeply into that since Mr. Blake talked about it already, but this is really going to give us a ton of data and help us to really take a big sky view of the program. Where are the skills that students are missing, and how can we supplement what we're already doing to fill those gaps with what the overall students are. And it's also going to be able to help us be able to identify certain specific students that are having struggles and help them maybe in small groups or individually get them connected with additional information and skill development. I took a snapshot of, I know that there's been maybe some questions about allocating the staff that have come in, because most of the social work positions are district-wide floating positions, which has actually been really beneficial now since Staley has closed and our population, we're still trying to kind of feel out where the biggest needs are. So I have the social work team and the buildings that they're assigned right now. On the bottom, I have the numbers, total population in each building, how many students there are with mandated counseling, how many school counselors are in that building, and how many school social workers are in each building. And there also is this little box here that talks about the recommended ratio, and this is specifically for school counselors. The recommended ratio from the American School Counseling Association is 250 students to 1 counselor. The national average 1920 school year was 424 to 1. The New York State average is 361 to 1 in 2019. And right now, if you calculate just total student population versus total school counselors we have, the average is 260 to 1. So we're real close. And there was actually a map that I found from 2015. They did a real deep dive into every single state and every single county, what the ratios were. And back in 2015-16, we were the lowest ratio all around us, of all the counties, all the school districts around us, except for Holland Patton was like a little bit less of a ratio than we were. So I think as a whole, we're doing really well with this type of support for students. We're way above and beyond what other places are doing. I can tell you, I have friends that work in the Utica district. Their elementary schools don't even have a school counselor assigned to them. They just don't. So we're really doing a great job as far as we can. That being said, there's been a lot of upheaval this year. We're seeing a lot, in and out, back and forth, unknowns. People, we talked about this at the advisory council. Ms. Reddick can probably speak to this even a little bit. People lost their space. A lot of those folks had now share a classroom. They have to share an office. They're sitting closer than I am to anybody here in an office all day. Where they were used to being able to have their own office, be able to kind of shut their door, have their own space, have their own organization. Now they have to share space with someone else. And I think it's really taking a toll on folks just in general in the schools. And it's hard, and we're doing the best we can. And also counselors are generally our helpers. And so other folks go to them for help. And so you're absorbing, as a counselor, absorbing all of the energy that the students are putting out, but also that the staff are putting out intentionally. But it's hard. It's extra hard this year. So I want to just thank everybody for giving us the extra help as a team. The new folks that have come on board are phenomenal. They're acclimating really well. I've been touching base with them regularly. And everything for them, they're just super excited to help kids. So what questions do you have? I think I went over pretty much everything. Hi, Paul.
Hi. Yeah. I have a question.
Please.
You say that, the students that are listed are mandated counseling. Could you talk about how that mandating works?
So those are students with IEPs,
Oh,
and
they
as a
are.
part of their IEP have counseling written into it as part of their program. But as I put on here, counseling can look different. So some students may have individual counseling once a week or once every 6-day cycle through elementary. Some students might have once a month. Some students might get their counseling services in a group setting. So there might be, multiple kids in a, let's say 4 students in a group working on the same type of skills. Some students just are consultant. So they just kind of not informally, but they're touching base with their social worker or whoever the provider is. They're not having to have a formal 30-minute session or whatever. So it looks a little different, but generally speaking, those are like just the raw numbers. I didn't want to throw too much data at you right now.
I mean, I have a quick
Yeah.
question about, first, I want to thank you for all you do. I mean,
Thanks.
we are fully aware of the toll it has taken on all of you as staff and our kids. So thank you. You have a tough job. Help me resolve, this is something I've mentioned before, but I don't think to you. To me, when the kids get to 7 through 12, particularly 9 through 12, to me, that school counselor is so consumed with college and career readiness and academic planning. So even though the numbers seem like, oh, you have 6 counselors, I feel like so much more of their day at RFA would be consumed with making kids schedules. The phone calls I get from my own child's guidance counselor are, here's your child's ranking. Can I get the letter for his recommendations? Is his schedule ready? Does he have enough credits? And I feel like, how do we free them up to offer mental health support if there is such a huge load on them for that academic planning? Because it's so unique there versus K-6.
So I would say that are you talking just specifically at the 7 through 12 level?
Well, right, because I feel like the role of a school counselor at that level is more towards that. When they walk in every day, that's what they're checking. Is a kid going to class? Is a kid passing or failing? Is a kid, where I feel like our elementary counselors get to do a little more of the touchy-feely. How are you, the social emotional learning, all of that. So are we providing enough support given what we know about kids' mental health, particularly, I mean, kids' mental health was declining already pre-COVID. Now we're trying to get kids back and kids are struggling. And so now it's a double whammy, right? Your counselors are like, oh my gosh, I have to make sure these kids are caught up and can graduate. But hey, how are they doing day by day? So I guess I look at 6 and I look at 1.8 social workers, and that seems like, oh, for 1,500 students, great. But I know that those 6 school counselors are spending so much more of their day on academic needs.
So I think in general, right, at the elementary level, like I've said, there's not a lot of career development happening,
Right.
career awareness happening. It's really heavy on the social emotional learning, anti-bullying, safety type conversations with school counselors. And at the secondary level, it is more career focused. And that's just the nature of those conversations. And really, if you're doing it well, by the time they get up there, they've learned those foundational skills from the elementary, from K-8. They've learned those skills from their counselor. And so at the high school, it's really more about advocacy and self-advocacy and reaching out and knowing what my resources are, and then going and finding those resources. So I think at the high school, if you remember, we did not continue our contract with Safe Schools. And so there's that preventative piece
Right.
that's not there.
Right.
And once that is, once we've created a new position, and we're talking about some of that tonight, to bring some of that support back. So I think if you have more preventative work there, if you have some more preventative options available, you don't just need a school counselor. Now you have other options. So specifically RFA, I pull out their annual goal for this year. Specifically, their goal is by sometime in June, they would say June 24th, 9 through 12 grade students at RFA will have an increased awareness of the mental health resources available to them within the school and the community. And so what they've done is they've assessed the students. They did a survey, they canvassed a subsection, not every kid. It's a little too hard, to get all of them to take the survey, but they did a subsection. And they found that only 25% of students that completed the survey did not know where to go. So they're looking at closing that gap and bringing it higher, so that 75% of kids know of at least 1 or 2 adults in the building that they can go to if they're struggling. And they want to increase that from 75 up to at least 88%. So they're doing a whole marketing campaign, and they talked more deeply about it at the council, about all of the different ways that they're marketing all of the resources available to students.
Okay.
So it's not just the school counselor's load that they have to carry. There are other options
Right.
at the high school, and there's other programs, and there's other individuals. So I think that at the high school, that's the bigger thing, is making them aware of what's available and how to get connected with what's available to them.
So that brings me to my next 2 questions, which are, we had a great presentation early in the summer from a student, and I know that you are an advocate of peer counseling.
Yeah.
How can we as a board help you to get there? And my follow-up question is, and what other ways can we help you? What else do you need to serve our kids in this very unusual climate?
I've been meeting with that student several times. He and I've had many conversations after he presented here. And he's doing some great stuff on his own. He's just an inquiring mind. Like, he's just one of those people that just likes to learn new stuff and gather information and analyze it from this topic to that topic to this topic. I'm working on with Mr. LeBaron and the team up there. We're working on implementing teen mental health first aid at the high school. There's been some technical issues with that. The organization that oversees it is not really readily available for technical assistance. But that's something that we're working on. So when I get more information from them about how that can be rolled out, that would be something that is exactly what you're saying. It's peers learning about mental health and how to get, how to recognize a peer is struggling, and then how to get that peer connected with an adult that will get them the help that they need. I think just, I would encourage you to reach out to the counselors and ask them what they need, you know? I hear conflicting answers when I ask that question, right? So I'll say, well, what do you need? And like, well, we need more help. And then I say, okay, well, maybe, you know, we have a new social worker coming. Well, where is she gonna go? We don't have any room for her. Where's she gonna stay with me? So I can't do my. So it's like, you know, so if we can get a new elementary school open soon, that would be cool.
We're trying.
I know. Well, I can't do that. You guys have to do that. So that's what you can do. That's what you can do. Get that focus and get that off the ground. Honestly, because that's I think that's a big struggle, is people had to give up their space, and
And so did our kids, right? So
Yeah.
did our kids.
and
There's
they're,
space
and
and
they're
people.
literally sitting on top of each other, and that's what makes it hard.
I have a quick question, Amanda. I want to drop back to the elementary piece of it and go back to the tiers that you were talking about. So our social workers, they've been around for how long? Not very long. This year?
Well, we had some before this, right?
Yeah.
So Courtney Scotto's been here for about 5 years.
Okay.
This is her 6th year. And then after that, we had a middle school position open. And I think that was maybe 4 years ago. 4 years ago.
Okay, but we're not talking about a
And
whole
now the
lot of people. We've got
elementary-
6 social workers right
The
now.
other ones just got, so 5 new positions started this year.
Okay, so I guess my question is prior to the social workers, particularly in the elementary school, you say we have these tiers. Tier 1 is kind of a career oriented. Tier 3 is kind of high IEP type kids, and then you have the shade of gray in the middle. So prior to the social workers coming on, the school counselors were kind of handling all 3 of these tiers, correct?
Yeah.
So in the elementary level, because you know, it's not very career focused as far as what a school counselor is doing with kids that age, as opposed to what Tanya's talking about, Stroud, RFA. So now you've got the social workers in working with the counselors. What exactly, I mean, how is it? Because obviously the counselors were, I'm assuming, qualified to handle those tier 3 kind of issues prior to a social worker coming in. So how is it kind of divvied up now? Because I would assume that there's not a whole lot of tier 1 type stuff at the elementary level. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
You are, I'm going to clarify for a quick second. I would say that most school counselors were not qualified to handle tier 3. They did it out of necessity, and that's how most school districts operate across the state. That's not uncommon. So they do the best of what they have, but there's not a whole lot of specific training. It's essentially tier 3 is trauma, students experiencing trauma. You're not talking, like I think you said 5%, right? Every student at an elementary level should be receiving tier 1 services. Every single kid in the building. So,
And what does that look like for
classroom
elementary?
instruction, going in, doing classroom unit lessons on the second step, like she's mentioning here.
Gotcha.
One thing that's changed dramatically that I think a lot of people don't realize is that in the past 5-10 years, New York State has started implementing counseling standards, which before, and I think as you heard her talk about the map of 2015 and the number of ratio, the ratio, you can see how disparate it is, and that's because most places never paid attention to it. Rome was well in front of this curve way before I even got here, Amanda got here. Rome has been a trailblazer in terms of making sure that their kids have counselors in their schools. So what you're dealing with right now is a cross section of people who are very veteran counselors for most of their career. There were no real standards, no real direction. It was, you're there, you support kids, you do what you got to do. You're triaging every day, right? What family needs this, what kid needs this. There wasn't classroom instruction, there wasn't requirements. All of those things are kind of new, and we're not like anywhere else. We've got a subsection of counselors that are trying to adapt to a new environment that it probably for some doesn't feel comfortable, because what you've probably done for 15-20 years you still have the skills to do it, right? You can't, I would argue to say all of our counselors have the ability to do it trauma-informed, one-on-one triage with a parent, a family, whatever. Otherwise, they wouldn't be school counselors. That's why they do the job. And especially if they've been doing it, they've got experience, right? You learn through experience. But there are some new requirements that we have to do that were just not being done before because our counselors, as you mentioned, were covering all three of these tiers.
Mhm.
So, and I don't think anyone at the table would disagree with this. If you have to pick between doing a classroom lesson in fourth grade for career development of any kind versus a family or a student in trauma, you're probably going to choose to tell the teacher in the fourth grade, I'm not going to be there today. I got a situation in trauma. And as we all know, that happens unfortunately more often than we prefer. So I don't know if that totally answered your question, but I
It
want to make
helps,
sure that there's
absolutely.
some things out there that have changed the role of a school counselor that we are fortunate that we have both counselors and social workers to be able to start doing that work. It's just not easy. And I think that's why she started with
I agree.
the work that the counselors and social workers are trying to do together to understand who can do what. It's going to be bumpy for several years until folks just understand a little bit more that no one's here to take anybody's work. We all just need to work together and do what we can to support kids.
So from the SEL perspective, isn't that something they're required now? Like, isn't that like is stated? I mean, just like we're now moving towards DEI being, Board of Regents is looking at this and state ed is looking at this as a foundational piece. Isn't the SEL more like a required piece of how we instruct now?
At the elementary K-8 level, yes, that's where those classroom lessons come in. They're covering that part of the requirements to make sure that students are receiving instruction, social, emotional, career development, all those pieces.
And then are our counselors involved in the buildings with PBIS?
Yep. It's each individual building, PBIS looks different, but the counselors by and far are sitting on those committees and having.
From our board perspective, in both ed programs and in policy, we enact policy and DASA, the DEI policy, all require us to have some type of committees happening. And then you also have PBIS. So we're always looking at from a practicality of how many hours you all have in the day, but also how much we have to budget for those services, or that programming. Can we do our best? If they overlap, does that make sense? Does it make sense to keep those things together so that we are, as you've always pointed out, doing well horizontally and vertically, right? And not competing, but working in concert. So that's important to know because I know we have been trying to get more consistent with having PBIS in all the buildings. As you mentioned, we're going to be looking at restorative practices. That's really the way we want to move. And we are really wanting to look at everything through an equity lens. So, I think that's just an invaluable part of what the counselor does and taps into. So.
I have a question. Okay, so if you're looking at this chart, these middle schools here, it's an enormous number of kids that are at the schools. Bellamy 609, Denty 605, and then Gans 431, and then you're moving along. Mandated counseling is 22 over at Bellamy, but then you keep going on and they only have one social worker. It seems like it would be an impossible task to touch every one of those kids, even for a basic thing. And I know for a fact how much trauma is happening over in the dens in the Bellamy area. Is there any talk of moving somebody else over there? Is there any talk of extra help, maybe extra hands? I mean, 609 kids with mandated counseling for 22 of them, and then only 3 people on the floor. That seems like a lot.
Well, if you look at it though, 3 is the most any school has, except for the high school and the middle school.
Well, but that's also,
So
they
that's
have the
why-
most mandated.
And I'll also tell you that of those 22, most of them are getting group counseling. I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to bombard you with data, but the majority of those students, those 22 mandated counseling students, are group counseling or consult. And so those can be touched all at once. You know what I mean? So you don't have to have individual meetings with 22 kids. You're having a group meeting with 3 or 4 of them.
So
And
did you-
it's much more manageable that way than to have individual meetings with every single student.
So when you do it like that, do you have to go in and change it through their IEPs?
They have them at their annual meetings, yeah. They get, it's adjusted at their CSC meetings, right? Yep.
Okay. Just seems like awfully big numbers for
Yeah, it's
such a
huge.
small amount of people.
I completely agree. And that's why they've had the 2 counselors and a full-time social worker this whole time. That social worker's been there since the first day of school.
That's, when we look at the number of our average, 260 to 1, but to Anna's point, I mean, at Ridge Mills, the student to counselor ratio is 189 to 2. But at Bellamy, where we know we have a huge need, it's 304 to 2. So I guess that's a question that we have to ask as a board is, do we want to cap, do we want to look at a ratio when we're budgeting for counseling staff and we're approving positions, or you're coming to us and saying, this is where we need help? We need to have a better understanding of that.
Right.
What, do we have a goal? Is that something we want as a board goal of how many counselors to students we feel is important for us to have? Because I don't know that the mandated number, I don't know, it's.
So again, like, if you're looking at Ridge Mills, just keeping in mind that right now, there's no social worker there.
But it's Ridge
And they
Mills.
actually reached out to me, right now, they're feeling like they're managing. They're managing all of that with 2 full-time people.
Mhm.
And there weren't 2 full-time people there before Staley was closed.
Right,
And
right.
so, I will tell you that you have to find a balance, right?
Right.
Of like, where is the need and where do people have the capacity to be? So, it's, I know, it's not perfect. There's no real answer. And again, this is like a year-long process. We're reviewing this every 2 weeks, going through and touching base with people and like, where are your needs at? Where is your space? Where do are you feeling better? Are you feeling good? You need more? So like, we're having those conversations on an ongoing basis. They're happening all the time. And is it possible that the need is going to shift and that staffing will shift? It's possible. Yeah.
Important thing, I guess, is that all the students' needs are being taken care of. So that's the important thing.
Yeah, and again, we're having more now than other places have at all. I mean, you will not find another elementary school with 3 full-time supports, social worker and school counselors there. You just won't. You won't find that anywhere. Look around. Any other district. If you find one, I would be shocked.
Listen, I'm all for being the leader. That's that's not a bad thing for us to be the
It
leader
does
in that.
feel like it's a lot. And remember too, and I don't know if you've been in the buildings or not, but at Bellamy, you've got both counselors, the social worker, and the community school site coordinator sharing a room.
But I was gonna ask that
So
question.
that's tough,
But how does community school come into that? Because that is the next piece, right? They are the conduit to the outside services that
Yeah.
can kind of back you up here.
So I had thought about including that, but I feel like that's like a whole other presentation that you might want to have a different night with Melissa Royce and Miranda Najwitz and me to talk about how that whole program has changed and evolved this year. I could talk a whole night about that. You know what I mean?
I think that would be really important for all of us, because I think
Sure.
those are questions we've had as well.
I know they would love to come and talk about all the stuff they're doing.
Already on our calendar.
Okay, any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Amanda.
guys so
Thank
much
you.
for being so supportive of the team. I mean, they really appreciate everything you're doing to help them. Thank
We
you
need
so
like
much.
100 more of y'all.
I know.
Yeah.
and
It's all
I mean,
about
God bless you.
They would, I know that there was one building, Mr. Blake, that's asking for a heated tent so they could hold some groups outside in the
Can't have an
winter.
open
Rob,
flame
my-
on
So
where are
school
those-
property.
Where are the
Yeah, that's a-
classrooms?
Sounds like a good
We
place.
should work on that.
We're trying, portable classrooms, come on.
Why don't we
guys.
turn one of those things and those big rig things in there to one of those?
You want, like,
With all of our
sheet for
school
counseling.
There we go. We get-
So there you go. Work on that for us.
Looks like.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
So you see the words popping up on the bottom?
Thank you all for being here.
Somebody's spinning, I don't see anybody.
My kid wants.
He doesn't see enough of you during the day.
No.
She
was on her
own
last week.
Have a good one.
I've been checking my phone to make sure no one texts me to say the word.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you all.
So what, do you have anybody at home watching?
I know. Yeah, Peter, when I found all that school supplies, put them in there.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I was freaking out because I saw that person standing and I was like. I'm looking over here.
It does that from time to time. It just freezes.
I was looking at Amanda, so I. Although last time this happened, someone texted me and said, we can still hear you, even though we were frozen, so I don't know.
Oh, no. My son's teacher just asked me if I'd be the mom for the guinea pig over Thanksgiving. This is horrid. I know. I was thinking about getting one for my
Okay,
husband.
Dave, we got a lot to go through, so,
Can you keep us on track, please?
we'll start with the consent agenda, on pages 2 through 5.
I knew it was gonna be a long night, so I took my
Resolution to
pencil.
accept consent agenda, that upon the recommendation of superintendent of schools, consent agenda be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Right.
And by Mr. Malaki. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 6. Finance. Action item number 1, resolution to adopt budget calendar. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the 2022-2023 budget calendar be adopted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
And by Ms. Reddick. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Action item number 2, resolution to accept change orders, 2019 capital improvement project. Whereas the Board of Education of the Rome City School District, the Board of Education previously authorized this 2019 capital improvement project, and whereas during the course of the project, certain changes to the work covered by various contracts have been determined by Labella Associates DPC, the project architect to be required, and whereas the project architect and the involved contractor will prepare, sign, and submit proposed change order for the following work, as listed there. Whereas the Board of Education has determined that it is in the best interest of the school district to approve the proposed changes and accept the proposed change orders. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. 1, the Board of Education approved the changes set out in this resolution. 2, the Board of Education hereby authorizes the president of the board to sign the change orders on behalf of the Board of Education and take all actions necessary or convenient to proceed under the contracts as amended by the change orders in connection with the project. 3, the Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent of schools to sign the New York State Education Department required certification in connection with each change order, take all actions necessary or convenient to satisfy applicable change order certification and filing requirements. 4, upon Board of Education approval of this resolution shall take effect immediately. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Haggerty. It was a 3-way tie there.
That's fine.
Have it. I heard him have it.
Any discussion?
I just have a quick question. Where, Rob, you're probably the person to know this. Where does this put this on the overall budget? Because we've now had several change orders.
We sent that update with the update on Friday. The full budget was in there. We're still several million shy of, we're still planning a phase 3.
Okay.
About 2.8 million.
Yeah.
What's it
2.8
called?
million left? All right.
It's on your.
I'm sure it was. There was a lot this week, okay?
The Colorado Pilot system is the electronic system that goes into the pool, the path that goes in the pool, and then it's all got to be wired under the pool deck. So when we tore up the pool deck to start the bonding, we found some rotted conduit that was metal, and I asked them to replace the entire system because I wasn't comfortable with
exposed wire under the concrete. Huh? Sorry, you're good. You should vote now.
Further discussion,
No.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Sorry.
Okay, committee report, we met on Tuesday, didn't, I think we talked about some of the stuff that was on here, talked about the budget calendar, which we approved, and there's been some other documents, internal documents that we'll be looking at on the budget calendar also coming our way, to be determined. Our next committee meeting will be Tuesday, November 9th.
No, that was already this week.
That was yesterday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wednesday.
It's December.
Yeah, I got it.
It's December 7th. It's December 7th at 10 a.m.
Oh.
Hey, Lisa.
Okay, next
It's gonna be a
meeting,
long
Tuesday,
night.
December 7th at 10 a.m. And with that, I'm passing the baton to Mr. Hagerty.
Okay, under facilities, we do have a meeting scheduled for the 16th. I'm still working on the agenda. I think Peter has some ideas for that. But just to reiterate, what I said before and kind of a little bit of what you've been hearing tonight. We have, I think facilities wise, we have two major things that we should be tracking as a facilities subcommittee. One is all the work that we're doing under the energy performance contracts and under the existing capital project of which you heard about the pool tonight. There's a lot of things there, and you're seeing it piecemeal. You're seeing it in terms of what's happening on a given week, and Peter usually addresses it in his weekly updates. Has an item on the capital project, and that's really good. And I think I personally have gotten more comfortable in terms of having an understanding of what's been accomplished and what is ongoing. The area that I think we're less informed about is the way forward. In other words, how are we going to solve the lack of elementary classrooms that Amanda mentioned in her presentation? Or if you visited any schools recently, which I happened to I didn't visit the schools, but I was near the schools. I observed a morning arrival at Stokes School, which is kind of close to where I live. And, they do a great job up there of handling 8 buses and probably nearly 100 vehicles, all arriving with students somewhere between maybe 10 minutes to 9 to 10 minutes after 9. It's amazing how that happens, but it's scary. If you know Turn Road, it's a high-speed road. There's not a light there. There's not like you see in a lot of, when school is in session, 20-mile-an-hour speed, none of that. And people are entering and leaving that building
In the same entrance.
from in both directions and arriving in both directions. It is really scary if they get, if you're making a left-hand turn off Turn Road into that, you're sitting out there like sitting, it is, I'm on that road a lot. And I tell you, it is scary because it's just crazy these days. And there's a lot of traffic in both directions. And that's not, I think, untypical, but that's a configuration because that is on a very high-speed road. I was talking to Karen the other night and she mentioned a similar situation at Ridge Mills, but Ridge Mills has got a light there and it's a
But it's still
different.
45 miles an hour.
Yeah, but-
A lot of space to get in.
You
But it's
can't
very
get in and out.
congested.
But-
It's too closer to the road, yes.
But
And
the
there's not
point
a lot
I'm
of
making
space.
is there's a reason for people to be slowing up and stopping there. That's not true at
Yeah.
Stokes. Those, if you're not going to the school, you're barreling north or south and you're not thinking about, there's nothing in that area. You've already passed Stewart's. If you're going south, there's nothing there except the school. And at those particular times of the day,
We should have what Westmoreland has. I've said that before. You should have the flashing
Why
light and
don't
the
we
slower
have that,
zones.
Peter? Why don't we have
We
signs
don't
on
distill
there?
any of it. It's all state DOT
State
run.
DOT.
Petitions, we've done everything we can. It's all out of our control.
And remember, what's driving
Don't
this
care
is
about our
is closing the stairs. We have to have more.
Somebody needs to write down
That
that.
building's got a lot of students in it. And with our busing situation, we probably have, I don't know what normal for Stokes is in terms of,
Oh, right, we have less buses, right?
Yeah,
you know-
because we've encouraged people to now drive their kids, and then
Right.
we put them all in this position of, I can't even get there.
I couldn't believe, I was trying to keep track of the number of private vehicles that were going in and out of there in that little short time frame that I mentioned.
Because it's one big
And it was-
open
it was
space in
approaching
front of
100.
Stokes. There's no like here and here. It's like, come in where you want.
So anyhow, what I'm
Make it
leading up to in a kind of a more dramatic fashion is we really need to get on with our future. Are we going to redistrict? Are we going to build a school? What are we going to do? Because those problems are not going away without space. I mean, you heard from Amanda over and over again. I mean, we've got pretty much all our space spoken for right now, I would guess. Maybe there's a school someplace that doesn't have an issue like this, but I think there's a couple that do. And it's not something we can ignore. And I think the key to it is what Peter mentioned earlier, we've got a redistricting study looking at things like, where do our students live? What is our busing problems? And we know we got busing problems, but where are they? Why are, if we had a few more buses or a few more drivers, would all that problem go away? Probably not, because we still got to get the kids from where they live to the schools. Maybe we could do a little more efficiently. So that's, for me, that's number one. I'd like to see anything we can do to get visibility, I think would make a worthwhile discussion at facilities. I mean, the other things like this, we just got a little status report on the change orders at RFA. We can pretty much handle that as in our regular meetings. We can do it, we can review it, but we're not set up right now. We don't have the contractual structure. We sort of hear it in real time or after the fact. What's happening with these various projects, but they're not going.
That's something we can discuss in facilities and get.
Well, it's part
Hop
of,
on social media, you'll hear all about it.
I never go near social media. For that,
Smart.
Right.
but hopefully, I think it's gonna be very interesting when our contractor comes in to talk about
Well, that's, I was just gonna bring that up, because that's happening on the 29th, but the facilities meeting is on the 16th. Should we have the first facilities meeting after he presents?
What I would hope we would look at the facilities meetings are the things that Peter is talking about, potentially putting forth first. Because if you remember, Lisa, since you and I have been on the board, we have had presented to us variations of sports facilities, variations of, we know we need to do things as to Paul mentioned. There were plans, Peter, if I'm correct, for the entrances to the buildings to make them more secure and the parking areas.
Yeah.
So I think we should at least get a handle on what we thought we wanted to do. And I think another important thing that I'm still an advocate of is building condition. We kind of got blindsided by how much more RFA needed than we anticipated it needing. So I think we have to be conscientious of that too, of what's coming. I mean, let's face it, Stokes is 15 years now.
but it's been upgraded.
15 years ago. So I mean, now it's time to start thinking about, are these buildings gonna need something? So, because I think in your time here, Paul, that's something that you focused on in facilities, is being more proactive and more maintenance oriented than reactive to.
Well, thankfully, the district had focused on it for a number of, there were a lot of forcing functions, like I mentioned it before, like the concerns about the roof loading back in the early 2000s, but that drove us into a program where almost all of our buildings have been upgraded, in many respects. So the buildings that haven't been, and the ones that we're doing this now primarily are RFA and Clough is one that needs work, but it's a function of how we're going to use it going forward. And some residuals with the other, but that's sort of the good news, I think, part of this. Really, it was not good news, and it's going to be tough to recover. So we'll have an agenda on the 16th.
And my guess is Alex is probably chomping at the bit to talk to us, so. We have talked to him since when?
Yeah,
July.
a while.
So, looking forward to that meeting.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Fontana.
If you love data, come to our meeting on December 6th, because we're gonna have a lot of it. That's all, folks.
Okay.
Check out those tests for us. Thank you, Chris.
I thought that was the last meeting.
Oh, it is worth coming home. Chris, I already started talking today.
got lots more
Great,
data coming.
Mr. Malachi.
I think we should put Karen in charge of all their updates.
I second that.
Action item number 1. Resolution to appoint instructional personnel, long-term substitute. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following instructional personnel, long-term substitute, Julie Becker Tornado, occupational therapist, BS 30 step 10 plus MS, salary 56,095 prorated, effective date 11/10/2021 to 6/30/2022. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Reddick. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution to appoint non-instructional personnel provisional. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following non-instructional personnel provisional. Geraldine Q, RFA, positions office specialist, 10 months, 7.5 hours per day. Salary is 23,541 prorated, effective date November 29, 2021. I move the resolution.
Second.
Good morning, Mr. Bowie. Any discussion?
Hey, what is this? That's because I was looking at him.
I couldn't tell.
This is
Ah,
either
that's
an
funny.
attendance office position or an assistant principal position.
You mean assistant?
Assistant principal clerical. Okay. I believe it's the attendance office.
That's what I thought.
That's what I
That's
thought.
what I thought.
Yeah, I
The
thought
10 was 10 months.
Is that
Any
Tom's
further
wife?
discussion?
What
Yeah,
was
for
that
this time
question?
month.
Is that Tom's wife? Geraldine?
Don't know.
Okay.
Tom Pugh.
Does anybody know
I
Tom?
don't even think he lives here,
Of
does
course I
he?
know Tom. Yeah,
Yeah, he does.
I think he lives in.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
In any event.
All right.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
No, I'm not.
Wasn't really related to.
Action item number 3, resolution to appoint non-instructional personnel probationary. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following non-instructional personnel probationary as listed in the agenda at page 8. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Reddick. Sorry about that. Okay, that's including the change that Mr. Blake had mentioned on Mr. Waldron.
That's correct.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Action item 4, resolution to accept retirement. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby accepts with regret the retirement of the following individuals: Josephine and Sarah, school psychologist, Stroud, effective date March 1st, 2022. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Any discussion?
Congratulations.
Congratulations on your
you.
retirement.
Thank you for your service.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Action item 5, resolution to appoint winter coaching personnel. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following winter coaching personnel: Matthew Dominic, girls modified basketball, at a salary of $4,803, effective date November 15, 2021 through March 1, 2022. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bowie. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Action item 6, resolution to appoint winter sports personnel. Resolved that upon the recommendation of superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following extracurricular personnel as listed in the resolution at page 9. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bowie. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I thought I did recall seeing some of these names to do some other positions during those events. Is this a
You can-
modification of that, or?
No, so even as you see here, Brian Haig is listed twice. It just provides the opportunity to do either or. They're not doing
I
both
gotcha.
at the same time, but they can't do one or the other and get paid legally
Yeah,
without
they
being
can't, they
appointed.
can't
as a-
Okay.
double dip.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Bill.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried.
Action item 7, resolution to involuntarily transfer staff. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby involuntarily transfers the following staff: Sabrina Amato, teacher assistant from Clough to John Joy, and Cheyenne Paul, teacher assistant from John Joy to Clough. I need the resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Bowie. Any discussion? It's just a phrase going on there, basically. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Action item 8, resolution to approve job description. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the job description for the following schools support specialists. I move the resolution.
Second.
Davis.
I believe that there was some,
The updated description was emailed to the board this afternoon.
Yeah.
It simply
Yeah.
added a function of attendance
Attendance.
monitoring in the job description.
This person's gonna be an RFA, right?
Oh, I meant to send it and I got the deal.
Is this person's gonna be an RFA?
There's
RFA,
two
one staff.
positions, one RFA, one staff.
Okay.
So now that we get the position of the description approved, the next step is we can post.
Yep, well, now I
We hope-
see that you, in the description, you used IRT, function of IRT.
To assist in it.
Yes, which is probate, it said facilitated, which is probation's
That was the one.
thing. That's what
Yes.
probation usually does.
Well, usually the people in our building would help.
They
them
work
with that.
together. Yes,
Yeah.
I know Chris,
Yep.
yes, works
Yep.
with Sarah very well, yes.
Yep.
So,
So we hope to post these this week and bring candidates forward at the first December meeting for appointment.
That
okay.
was the line here. Facilitate, it should be facilitated and be consistent with the rest of the document. Says the English. Girl, sorry.
Any further discussion? Any missing periods or commas or?
Well, you know, we are a school. We should have grammatically correct documents leaving the space.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Okay, action item number 9, resolution to appoint teacher mentors for 2021 to 2022 school year. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following teacher mentors for the 2021-2022 school year as listed in the agenda at page 10. I move the resolution.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Davis. Any discussion?
There was the amendment that was mentioned earlier regarding Glenn Kuhn and Kelly Yustovich that are going to be sharing the salary and work with co-mentors. So just wanted to reiterate that.
Clarify that. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Malachi. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Action item 10, resolution to appoint a coordinator for the after-school program for 2021-2022 school year. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appointed coordinator for the after-school program for 2021-2020 school year as listed in the resolution. I move the resolution.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Bowie. Any discussion?
I had a question on the rate on this. Is this a contractually negotiated rate? Even since this is in italics, this is an added item since people.
Jeff answered that for me, because I just had a curious question, because she's also responsible for doing the tutoring, getting the paperwork for the kids that have been suspended. So that's where the difference is. She
But
does,
the rates are contractual.
yeah.
So, well,
yeah,
I
but
guess, so I
that's-
guess what I'm wondering from our perspective of the overall budget for this, because we are about to approve a couple of other additional items. On average, is this a newer program, or do we know on average what our sum total averages out to be, or how many hours of dedicated time that is?
I can't tell you what it is. I know that it's 2 hours a day. I can tell you that the amount we spent on this type of work 5 years ago was well north of 700,000 at least, and now we're down closer to 300,000 a year. I can't. off the top of my head.
I think it's a
We can
very,
get you the information, but we spend a lot less on the reorganization of the program than we once did.
Well, because we got rid of the tutorial center, correct, or?
Yeah, that was not, there was issues with that.
I mean, it's a very necessary service, particularly on the heels of COVID, but I just want to make sure that it's sustainable.
I would say it's easily sustainable. Yeah, it's not
Have we not been providing this right now, or the after school?
we just started.
It went away for
the
like
other week
3
because
years.
of transportation. We had to get transportation up and running to make
Okay.
sure, and then we had to make sure we can get kids home.
Okay,
So now that we've got all the kinks worked out on the regular day transportation, now we can get the after school transportation. So we're moving forward.
Any further discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Action item 11, resolution to appoint tutor for the after-school program for 2021-2022 school year. Resolved that upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following tutors for the after-school program for 2021-2022 school year as listed in the resolution on page 11. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Reddick. Any discussion?
Are these people gonna be there every night or they're gonna take turns? Like they're gonna have different shifts? You know what I'm saying? Because I assume it's gonna be Monday through Thursday that they're gonna offer.
Monday through Friday, 2 hours.
Oh, it is Friday too? Okay. So
Yeah.
are they all gonna be there Monday
They
through
won't all be there
Friday?
at the same time.
They won't be,
No, they
okay,
won't
so
be.
they're just gonna have different days that they work, okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Action item 12, resolution to appoint tutors for the after-school program for 2021-2022 school year. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following tutors for the after-school program for 2021-2022 school year. As listed in the resolution. Page 11. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Reddick. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, action item number 13. Resolution create.
Well, hang on. We have to.
Oh, we have to add
Walk
to
it
the
on.
agenda.
Gotta be,
Sorry.
yeah,
I thought we already did that.
nope.
That would be two.
Okay, so motion to add an item to the people operations agenda.
Second.
Ms. Davis. Any discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we got it on now.
Okay, so action item 13, resolution to create positions. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the creation of the following positions: interim principal ECP and teacher ENL Stokes. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Malachi.
That next meeting is also 12/7.
Yes, that is going to be on 12/7 as well. I can discuss that with Ms. Morton, and it'll be at our usual time. Which is
Okay, policies.
Action item 1, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy 1120, school district records. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy 1120, school district records be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution. Bless you.
Second.
Second by Ms. Reddick. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Item 2, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy 1100, public information program. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy 1100, public information program be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
second.
Second by Mr. Malachi. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 3, resolution to accept the second reading and adoption of policy number 1130, media relations. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the second reading and adoption of policy 1130, media relations be accepted by the Board of Education. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Malachi. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And to keep our momentum going, our next meeting will be this coming Monday, the 15th at 4:30 here. And I forwarded agenda items to Patty today. Peter, I'm not sure if you saw my note on that of whether or not you wanted the two policies,
Which the regulations?
the two sexual harassment policies. Are we ready to move forward? Or did you have time to get
I
those?
haven't done any cross-referencing of Mike Dodds and the two.
So let's hold on to those. So don't include those, Patty, on the agenda, the 0
We already sent it out, I think, but that's okay.
Okay, okay. Okay, so we'll be
We'll make
moving
it
on to
work.
section 1200 to keep our momentum going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Davis. Do we have any miscellaneous business?
Other than hear from Ilana.
Yes, one more time.
No, we want to
Great
hear
job.
from Ilana. We want to start.
Oh.
Listen, you know what? That's such an impressive accomplishment. It deserves a second.
Yeah, it's right. You're right.
That is amazing.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
sure.
So just to talk about some things that we've been doing in the school right now, we are doing our canned food drive.
That's going to go until November 19th. It's always been very successful. And right now we have had a lot of donations, so it's continuing to be successful this year.
Is that going to the home rescue mission? Just various.
We have discussed many options. I don't know if we have a set plan of where we want to distribute them to yet, but that's something we're probably going to talk in our next meeting, our next staff meeting. Another thing we're doing for our community is every year we do Christmas cards for the nursing homes. So that's something we're starting. We do that through Leo Club and through STAS. And actually Art Club's doing it this year as well. Picture retakes, we had to push that back because our IDs did not come in at a scheduled time. They are in now. We are distributing them through our lunch periods, but picture retakes will be November 19th. So you can go during your lunch periods because kids didn't know if they liked their pictures or not. So we had to push back the date. So there's that.
That is important.
And we have our anticipated date for open mic night is going to be December 14th. So that's something we finally got off the ground and we're excited to do this year. And that's what we have going on so far. And
SAS is going good.
SAS is going very good. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you and congratulations again.
Thank you.
That's me.
Okay. Any other business?
I have a question. We have a couple of kids that go to church school in the mornings and they were holding off on approaching people for busing because they go in the morning and then the bus brings them to their school. When can we figure that out?
I haven't heard anything about it.
Well, it hasn't happened. So it usually happens. It's just something that they've always done. They go to church school in the morning, then the bus brings them till their elementary school, and that's it. And I know a lot of our hockey players do that and it's getting in the way of their practice night. So they're having to pick one or the other.
I would say whoever's in charge of the program should reach out to us. This is the first I've even heard of it. Yeah.
They did, and they said it was because of busing. So we were waiting to work out the kinks with busing, but if we.
If you have a number, you give it to me.
Who'd they reach out
Perfect,
to?
thank you.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about it.
I know St. Paul, it's, can't, they shifted theirs around because they couldn't get busing. And I think they were
Exactly.
talking that there was a bus company, but I don't know.
Yeah, some kids are missing practice for it.
Thank you. Have a contact us.
Thank you.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Davis. I never seconded.
No, she made the motion.
And Mr. Malachi.
I thought Nate made the motion.
No, he said I will
Is that
accept the
a rule
motion.
that she has?
I made it, I'll second.
Gotcha.
We do not intend to return and it will be to discuss the employment of individuals, contract negotiations, and legal matters.
All in favor? I mean.
Aye.
I'm getting punchy. Okay, we are in executive session.
We hadn't noticed.
We gotta take-
We're taking a 5-minute break.
No, we are.
San Francisco. San Francisco.
Need to start.